What's up, guys? This is Alton here. Got another video. Saw this video yesterday from a guy named Anthony Brian Logan. I'll go ahead and leave a link to his channel in the description. I'm subscribed to his channel. Black conservative guy. Like the content that's on his stuff. But anyway, I was watching this video and it was about a black lady. Well, actually, she's not black. She's actually African. She was born in Nigeria, and I think she was born and raised in Nigeria, but she lives in London. And she did an interview with the BBC. Now, I want you guys to really pay close attention to this interview. As the lady from the BBC, she's trying to get the lady. I'm going to go ahead and put a picture of her on the screen right now. Can't really pronounce her name, so I don't want to mess it up. But she's trying to convince her that abortion is something that African women need. But she's basically trying to tell the lady from the BBC that that's not what Africans need. You know, we don't need abortion. We actually need health care. We need food. We need education. So I don't want to really give too much away in this 5-minute interview. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and play it. And I just want you guys to go ahead and watch it, and I'll go ahead and now do my response after the video.
Okay, we can now speak to pro-life campaigner Obianuju Ekeocha from the Society for the Protection of Unborn Children. She's also the founder and president of Culture of Life Africa. She's in our studio in Birmingham and joins us now. Thank you very much for joining us here on the program. I mean, we just saw Karen's piece there. The fact remains that hundreds of millions of women do not have access to contraception.
Now, in that report that you had just played now, it's kind of confusing because you first of all started talking about HIV and access to contraception. Then you're trying to conflate it with something like the provision of abortion in a place like South Africa, which is one of the few African countries that actually has legal abortion. Just to point out that about 80% of the African countries actually don't have legal abortion. And they don't have legal abortion not because they can't legalize abortion. We all have parliaments, we have governments that can go through the process of legalizing abortion. But actually, an overwhelming majority of the African people continue to reject abortion, even as surveys. I think Pew Research had done a survey a couple of years ago and found out, in some countries as high as 90-something% of the people still continue to reject the idea of legalized abortion. So I don't understand, are we talking about abortion? Are we talking about contraception? They're two different things. If we're talking about abortion, well, I don't think that any Western country has a right to pay for abortions. In an African country, especially where majority of people don't want abortion, then that then becomes a form of ideological colonization, as we're beginning to see it more and more.
But say if we talk about contraception, the fact remains that hundreds of millions of women don't have access and should.
Well, you're saying should, but who are you to decide, if you don't mind me saying?
Well,
because the thing is, there isn't a popular demand, ma'am. There isn't a popular demand. If you go to Africa, what people are asking for every day, because I was born in Africa, I was raised in Africa, I continue to go to Africa many times a year. You just speak to any ordinary woman. I think contraception might be like the 10th thing she says, if that.
But it's a basic human right to have access to it. That's when I say that they should have access. It should become available for them if they want it.
When
it should be available.
There is no food and there is no water, then if there is only a limited amount of aid.
But it is part of that cycle of poverty and dealing with poverty and overcoming poverty, is it not?
Well, that's kind of a Western solution, isn't it? But if the Africans are brought to the table, and the people are asked, the ordinary people, I'm not speaking about some doctor that works for some Western organization that is planted in Africa. If you speak to the ordinary woman on the streets of Africa, what is she asking for? She's asking for food. She's asking for water. She's asking for basic health care. And contraception continues to be like about the last thing that they would ever think of.
But does
now,
that
talking
not,
about contraception,
but does that not play into the wider conversation about poverty and food? If they have access to contraception, if they can deal with birth control, if they can have a family planning program in place, then it deals with the issues of poverty as well.
That is the Western solution. Why don't you listen to the people first? Now, talking about something like contraception, in all this talk about contraception, the one thing that I have never heard of in all my time trying to track all these things is something like the side effects of contraception. No one ever tells the African women when they come to promote contraception across the different African countries. No one talks about it. Now, recently, I spoke to some women in Africa who had contraception inserted into them. I think it was something like the IUD and the Implanon. And these women were crying. I found myself consoling women who had actually been experiencing these side effects that they had never heard of before. No one ever told them. But someone from a Western organization, one of these Western organizations in Africa, came and put the IUDs into them and told them this is what you need to come out of poverty. That is not what African women need. That is not the single indicator to come out of poverty. What Africans need is education.
They do, indeed. It's about education as well, so that they understand their basic human rights. It's not just about the West coming and imposing something.
These are colonial thoughts, so you better be careful expressing them. According to whom? So there are Africans who don't have access to education. What children are looking for is a way to get into school. Someone like myself, I was born in Africa, I was raised in Africa. My lifeline out of poverty was education. It was not contraception. And there are so many other women who have walked the same path as I have without ever having to take recourse to some contraception provided by the British government or the United States government.
So you're you're then also generalizing, speaking on behalf of every woman on the continent, saying that the majority of them.
So are you? You're talking about a general solution when Africa is actually not a monolithic
all I'm
society.
saying is that they should have the right to have access to.
Well, they do. We have contraception in Africa. As a matter of fact, a lot of the aid money is being actually redirected to provision of things like contraception.
Well, when the United Nations says that more than 200 million women don't have access to it, then it's contradicting what you're saying.
How many of those people? I am not contradicting them. I'm saying these are the calculations by the United Nations. But how many of those 200 million women are actually asking for it? There is a difference between what the United Nations now calls the unmet need and the unmet demand. What the African women are actually dying
of. When we go back to education, perhaps they're unaware.
Well, it's for someone like yourself, someone so kind and generous from the West to come tell them that what they need is contraception to come out of poverty. Now you give them contraception, and the next day they still don't have work. The following year they still don't have work.
Obianuju, I would really love to discuss this further with you. We're just 10 seconds to go off air, so thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for joining us here on the program. Do stay with us. We've got lots more coverage.
All right, so did you catch that? Now, I had to play the whole thing. This was a very good debate, if you want to call it, or a good dialogue when it came to this issue of abortion. Now, what I want you guys to understand is that, number one, I get a lot of black women, a lot of black conscious women who support things, and a lot of black Christian women too, surprisingly, who they accept this ideology of abortion, and they believe that it's a woman's choice and all of this stuff here. And it's always surprising to me that when I hear black women, especially black women in the church, talking like this, that I'm just basically blown away. And here you are, you have a woman that's in Africa who is a woman who is basically born and raised there, and she's just like, listen, we're not even worried about abortion, and we're worried, we got other problems. So basically what this one lady from the BBC is trying to say in so many words is that, well, you guys need to stop having so many kids. So if we just go ahead and give this basic right to women to go ahead and kill children, then that'll put an end to poverty and all of that stuff there. Well, first of all, if you think about our recent history here in America, I think maybe around the 60s or so, with Margaret Sanger, when they started the Planned Parenthood thing. And if you remember, where did they start? They started in the black community, and this was basically the same argument that they were trying to use, saying that if black women just got abortions, and it would just end poverty, it would just help balance the economy and all of this crazy stuff. But if you look at the black community today, it's in a worse position than what it was back before the Planned Parenthood came into the black community and just started performing all of these abortions. So we know that it's something that has failed. And what this lady from the BBC is trying to do, she's trying to convince this lady who, by the way, as I reiterate, who was born and raised in Africa, who is there at ground zero with these African women, and she's talking to them. And that's why in the video you heard her say, like, according to who? Like, you're trying to say that these women need this, but this is what you're saying. I'm talking to these women, and these women are telling me that they need food, education, they need clothing, they need just the basic necessities. And the last thing on their mind is abortion. But you can see the Western way of thinking, okay? This is the Western way of thinking. And just go ahead and just kill these babies. Don't even worry about it. Just kill them. Keep the population down. And as long as you keep the population down in these areas, you won't have these kids born into poverty and all of this stuff here. And, things will get better. But just like the lady from Africa, what she said was that if I go ahead and I perform an abortion or I get some type of contraception or something, I'm still without a job. I'm still without food, clothing, all of this stuff. So it basically does nothing. Abortion and contraceptions does nothing because I'm still going to be faced with the same issues. But what this is actually what is mentioned in Genesis when it talks about the enmity between the man, the seed of the woman, which is Christ, and the seed of the serpent. So this is right here a first-hand look at what is actually going on of that scripture. So you have the seed of the serpent, which basically is saying, hey, go ahead, kill man. We need to reduce the population of men and all of this stuff here. But the seed of the woman, Jesus Christ, teaches us that all life is valuable. Everyone is made in the image of God. But what we have to understand is that Satan doesn't play fair. He's not called to play fair. He isn't going to play fair. And if he can go into a third world country or a continent like Africa where there's famine, there is just extreme poverty, where people are just, they don't even eat on a regular basis. I think I heard a report one time where some people actually eat maybe 2 or 3 times a week. I mean, that is like crazy. That is rough. But this is the world that we're living in. And instead of the solution being, well, hey, let's go ahead and bring aid to these people, their solution is actually, well, let's just go ahead and kill them. Let's just go ahead and kill them and reduce their numbers, and that is going to balance everything out. That is a very satanic mindset. I mean, you can't get more evil than that. That you would rather go ahead and kill someone instead of lending out a helping hand, giving them food. I mean, here in America, I mean, we throw away so much food. I mean, we throw away tons of food. I mean, we spend a lot of our money on just junk, just a lot of junk and BS. And you got people over in these countries like Africa starving, but the West has the audacity to basically go into these countries and say, well, your problem is that you have too many children. So you guys need to go ahead and, the most important thing for you is to take this contraception and to have these abortions. But, this is the times that we're living in. Very evil times. Very evil. And most of this is being carried out by the SJW, leftist, totalitarian, liberal mindset. And that's why it always just boggles me when I'm listening to black people who consider to be an SJW or a liberal or Black Lives Matter and all of this other crazy stuff. Because this is the type of mindset that they have. Just a very evil mindset. But anyway, I just wanted to go ahead and do this quick video, guys. As always, like, rate, share, comment, subscribe, thumbs up, thumbs down if you want. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. But as always, you guys have a blessed day.